I was born in Italy, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. But my parents decided to move to the United States where they had freedom and opportunity. So I grew up in none other than Miami, Florida. Statistically, I should be a Democrat because I'm an immigrant, right? Well, wrong. I am a gun loving, God fearing, conservative Republican whose mission in life is to spread the gospel and promote conservatism. Come with me on this journey as we explore controversial topics of today and sit with the nation's most influential people. This is To the Point with Lucia Scatamacchia. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Point with Lucia Scatamacchia. And today I have Florida Representative Byron Donalds. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. It's been a crazy time with coronavirus, but I'm doing really good.
Good. So you, sir, are taking up the challenge to run for Congress. So hats off to you. We know that's not something easy. And for all of you guys that have not seen his clip and his video on his website, here it is. You need to take a look. Okay. Going to go to the first question now, right?
Okay.
So you are extremely candid with your constituents about what happened to you when you were younger, being arrested for drug possession and theft. So would you say that was an event that changed the direction of your life forever?
It was one of them. I think at that point in my life, I was lost, 19 years old. I was, in college, but really lost in life, really trying to find out what it was I was supposed to be doing. Not mature, making, a lot of bad decisions, not just that one. And, at that point in my life, I had to look myself in the mirror and make a decision of frankly, which way did I want life to go? And I just made a firm decision that I was never going to find myself in a position like this again. And through the grace of God, that's been the case.
Praise God. And I'm glad that you mentioned him because you don't shy away from mentioning God at all. So would you mind sharing with me and the audience your testimony?
Oh man. So I used to wait tables at Cracker Barrel in Tallahassee. And I remember it just like it was yesterday. I was waiting tables, and the first table I had, it was the summer of 2001, actually leading into September 2001.
Mm.
And earlier in that summer, I had a lady that came by, and she was traveling with her husband, and she saw my apron and practically put your name on it. I was waiting on her table, and she goes, "You're Byron." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And she goes, "I wrote a story about you on the road. And there's a story about you and God, and God was just saying, don't run from me anymore." And I was just like, "Okay, all right, thank you for the story." And I read it, and I was like, "Well, this is interesting." And then actually, a couple of weeks later, I was waiting on a big group. It's about 15 people. They had just come back from a revival. And the Lord had really been dealing with me, and just where I was going in life and my walk with Him. And when I was waiting, after the table left, they were getting back in their van to leave, and I was on the server line, just rolling silverware until my next table sat down. And the Lord was just like, "Just go talk to him." And I went outside, and the last lady was getting on the bus, and I walked up behind her, and she saw me, and she said, "Young man, can I help you?" And I was just like, "Lord told me to just come see you. Stop running." So they all piled off the bus. They prayed for me there. I gave my life to Christ. That was September 2nd, 2001, excuse me. And, my life has never been the same after that.
Oh, wow. That was just beautiful. Thank you for sharing that testimony. It's always so amazing when I get to hear what God is doing in the lives of others, and how they come to know Him. So now that we've covered the most significant aspects of your life, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. We're not allowed to, be together because of the worldwide pandemic. So you have a record
of defending the constitutional rights of Floridians. So would you say the shutdown is constitutional?
No, I wouldn't say it's constitutional. I do understand and I do agree that the governor and the state, frankly, have powers during emergency procedures. So there's without question that the people of Florida have given the governor and the state, for that matter, emergency powers in times of storm, in times of immediate death and immediate loss of property and life that is so rampant across an entire community or entire city or even the entire state. Uh, this is really becoming a major question. And I know a lot of counties around the state issued orders early on to do shutdowns and shelter in places and to close businesses that they deem to be non-essential. I don't think that any county in the state has any authority to do that. They've never been given that authority by the state legislature. They've never been given that authority by the governor, and they definitely haven't been given that authority by the people. And so I think those orders are completely unconstitutional. Any county that issued an order like that didn't have the authority to do it. I think at this point with the COVID-19 response, there's a real question of how much authority do governors have? The clear and present danger, if you will, that is the coronavirus,
Right.
is still there. It's not. It's just something that's going to be with us, in my opinion, for some time, simply because we don't know how many people in the entire population have actually had the coronavirus and have already recovered from it. We don't have that information. We've been doing testing on the people who have acute symptoms. We've been treating them and cracking their situations, but not the entire population. So I think we're coming to a point where these emergency orders, these shelter-in-place orders, these business shutdown orders are frankly pushing the limits and probably have passed the limits, in my opinion, of what governmental power really should be.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. And I really wanted to shed light on those constituents that have lost their jobs due to the pandemic, haven't received any help, and really are wondering where their next meal is going to come from. So what are elected officials doing for them?
Well, and for the state response, obviously trying to get unemployment assistance into the hands of people as quickly as they can. I think one of the most unfortunate things we've seen throughout this entire crisis is that this age-old argument of capitalism versus socialism has been settled during the coronavirus. Socialism simply doesn't work. It cannot work. It cannot provide for the lives of 30% of the people, 40% of the people. And this pandemic has shown that in spades, unfortunately. A lot of elected officials, like myself and others, we've been doing food drives, trying to get information into the hands of our constituents, doing the things to help them try to find a way to manage their own lives through this. Uh-oh.
No, okay.
Lucia, I'm back.
No, we're good. We're still recording. Go ahead.
Okay, but I think, the record is clear that governments do not have the capacity or the ability to provide for people in their everyday life. And anybody who thinks that's not true. We could have universal health care. We could have national income standards and things of that nature. This situation has proved without a shadow of a doubt that it's simply not possible.
Right. Very good point. And I wanted to point something out about you. And it's known all over your campaign that you are everything the fake news media says doesn't exist. So you are Trump supporting, liberty loving, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment Black man. And that's what we need to drain the swamp, right? I love that pro-Second Amendment. And I want to bring up the risk protection order. So I want to expand on that for Floridians who may not know what that means. In 2018, the Florida legislature passed the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act in response, unfortunately, to the tragic school shooting. The law is designed to enhance the public safety by restricting firearm and ammunition possession by a person who possesses a danger to himself or herself or others. So RPO could be another name for red flag laws. So again, we've established you are a constitutionalist. Are these RPOs constitutional? And would you be in support of constitutional carry, which means there would be no licenses, and people can just, purchase a gun and carry a gun without having to go through those background checks?
First of all, let me do a constitutional carry. I am in favor of constitutional carry. There is, in my opinion, there's minimal limits to the Second Amendment. And I think that states where that have barred constitutional carry, I think there's real issues there. I think it is totally within an individual's right to protect themselves, to protect their home, to be able to be armed. And the vast majority of citizens lawfully carry every single day. Most people who don't carry would not know who actually does. In Florida, obviously, concealed carry permits are a major part of our fabric. I think Floridians will be surprised how many Floridians actually concealed carry on a day-to-day basis, and they wouldn't know. The issue comes, unfortunately, when tragedy strikes, and that goes to the other part of your question about risk protection orders or red flag laws. I do think those are unconstitutional. When that was going through the legislature, I was in the legislature in 2018 when this bill was going through. I voted against the bill, and the reason I voted against the bill were because of the red flag law provision, and then also the provision that raised the age for buying shotguns and long guns from 18 to 21. The reason that both of those provisions were put into that bill, unfortunately, was because of political reasons. We had the largest school shooting in the history of our state happen while the legislature was in session, and there was a major move to do something before we left Tallahassee. But I think both of those measures are unconstitutional, simply because the due process mechanisms in red flag laws are not clear. They do not protect a citizen who could be, frankly, erroneously targeted by somebody choosing to remove their firearms. And that doesn't protect that individual's Second Amendment rights. And so that's the issue with red flag laws. With raising the age from 18 to 21, with a 19-year-old in the state of Florida should be able to buy a shotgun. That's just completely irresponsible. That's why I voted against the bill. And, that's why in the congressional race I'm in, there's really no doubt that I'm the only person that has constitutional rights, and it also has the experience of having to stand against, your own party when, frankly, the weight of the political world is upon you.
Yes, I completely agree. I think when I went to Tallahassee to lobby with the RNHA, I was shocked that some conservatives that I was sitting with did not vote conservative. They weren't really for the party, and I was just baffled by that. So there are definitely people, unfortunately, that get elected and don't do what the constituents voted them to do. So what would you like to accomplish during your time in Congress?
Washington, so many things have gone off the rails. Number one, Congress typically doesn't meet under regular order, especially in the House. That simply doesn't happen. And what happens, honestly, is a lot of people across the entire country, whether you're Republican or Democrat, your members have little power or say what goes on in the People's House because so much of it has been absorbed into the Speaker's office. That's something that has to change. I think we have to have real immigration reform. And I think that, unfortunately, it's become not even so much a partisan issue, but a racial issue. And I think that you can have true immigration reform that respects American citizenship, that respects, frankly, all people, no matter where you come from. But there has to be a clear understanding that if you're going to come to the United States, you have to follow the rules. Like in anybody's house, you decide who comes and goes from your own home. Well, if those are the rules for your house, how come those can't be the rules for a country? That just doesn't make any sense. It's not consistent philosophically. And I think that's where you can actually have these political battles and these political victories on the conservative side, because we're not against, obviously, barring people from coming to the country. That's simply not true.
Right.
But there has to be clear rules to the road. It has to be consistent so that all people can abide by the rule of law. All people can be safe. American citizenship has the stature that it requires, and it is American citizenship, in my opinion. The last part is we are going to have serious budget reforms. I know that there's always the third rail in politics. They always say Social Security and run out of money.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Probably around 60. Am I back?
Yeah,
Oh.
you're good.
Am I back? Okay. I've been involved in politics for about 10 years. And, 10 years ago, back in 2010, we heard the reports from CBO about how Social Security and Medicare were going to be insolvent in 2035. Well, guess what? CBO just came out with another report, and now they're saying they'll be insolvent in 2035. So in 10 years, Congress has done nothing. But these programs are going to unwind, in some respects, the very fabric of the country, are going to cause significant damage unless Congress takes it so seriously and does something about it. The last thing that I want to get done are congressional term limits. And that probably should be the first thing we should get done. We have to turn the People's House back to its original intent. You go, you serve for a period of time, and you go home. I think what's really caused our politics to be so divisive and so toxic is because you have political leaders who are so vested in their own power that they're willing to win at any cost. But if you knew you had to go home, I don't think our politics would be nearly as divisive as they are today.
Exactly. And that's the way our founders intended it to be. You live your own life, do your own career, and then serve your country for a short period of time, and then go back and give someone else a chance to serve their country and represent their community. So the last two questions for you that I'm sure everyone wants to know. First one being, have you always been a conservative? And then the second question to that is, what does conservatism mean to you? And how do you live that out? Because there's different definitions of conservatism. We want to hear, what is your definition of conservative?
Those are great questions. First, have I always been a conservative? No. I came into politics 10 years ago, like I said. Before that, I was like most people. I was apolitical. I was a registered Democrat. I didn't really care about politics at all. My wife actually cared significantly more about politics and political events than I did. I voted, but I just didn't really care. Most people, unfortunately, don't care about politics. And I think if you look at the history of the country, that's just always been the case, is that you have, I guess you call them the movable middle, who just simply don't care about politics at all. And they just watch for about a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then they make their decisions about who they're going to vote for based upon that. And then they go back to their lives. That's okay, but that's just the way it is. And I was definitely that person.
Yeah.
I came into conservatism through research. The first book I ever read was The Law by Frederick Bastiat, and it really talked about the purpose of law. And so this was back during the financial collapse at the time. This was 2007, late 2007, early 2008. And because of my career in finance, I was had a front row seat watching all this happen. And I was really perplexed why members of Congress knew nothing, frankly, about financial markets. And then I started doing more research and realizing they didn't really know much about the founding of the country either, but they were members of Congress. Yeah. And so that but that led me to really do my own self-discovery about why America was the way it was, why separation of powers are critical, why it's important to have a limited and constrained federal government whose powers are enumerated and not just allowed to flow into any aspect of American life. So through all of that, I actually realized I was far more conservative than I had thought. And then I changed parties. I became a Republican, and then I've lived my life that way. I think to your second question, is it easy for me to live it? Yeah, because I think that, what conservatism really is, it is the fundamental belief in individual liberty, and it's a belief in limited government. It's really that simple. I think in our politics, unfortunately, it gets caught up in, only certain people believe in conservatism and other people believe in liberalism. That's simply not true. I think that whether you're white, black, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Guatemalan, Peruvian, from El Salvador or Puerto Rico, or wherever the case you might be from, people just want to be free to choose in their own lives. They want to have an economy where their kids can thrive and grow under merit. And I think that when you have a limited government under the bedrock of the Constitution, that allows for free markets and free people to choose in their everyday life, what you have is the greatest society or community or nation you could possibly hope for. And the truth is that was already created for us here in America. Our job is to make sure we keep it so that the next generation has the ability to achieve the greatness that in some respects we thrive in. And unfortunately, some people might take for granted.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me when you just said, if we keep it, because Benjamin Franklin, when he stepped out, they asked him, what did you guys come up with? And he said, a republic if we can keep it. And so that's spot on, and we need to be doing the work. And I want to thank you and commend you for running for Congress, for representing your community, for being a constitutionalist. I think it's so important to ask those that are running if they know their Constitution, if they know the history of our nation, because if they don't, it's going to be a huge problem. But nonetheless, thank you again for coming on. Where can we find you on social media? Where can we donate to your campaign? Give us all the detail.
You can make donations to my campaign at byrondonalds.com. Just look at one of these placards behind me, just byrondonalds.com, and you can go and donate. And then on social media, it's easy. Facebook, it's facebook.com/Byron Donalds. Twitter and Instagram, it's at Byron Donalds. I try to keep it pretty simple. But just I would appreciate it. Follow me. I do think that there's a special time in our politics right now where you have voters across the political spectrum and across all racial lines are really trying to figure out what they're gonna align themselves with as they move forward. Younger voters are starting to come in, and there's a great discovery amongst them. I think they're really trying to figure out who they're going to be and what they want the nation to look like. And I think that our best days as Americans are ahead of us. But it's important, it's critical that we have leaders who really exhibit restraint, who understand the limits of governmental power, but also want to make sure that we provide to people and make sure people remain and retain their choices, their liberties, their rights, because it's by their choices and frankly the goodness of people every single day that makes the nation fantastic.
Amen. So for those of you that are watching, his social media info will be down below. Follow him. He has a huge following. Picture with Donald Trump, which we all love. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and we look forward to you winning this election.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. God bless you guys.
God bless you. Bye-bye.